It's on.
Okay. Sorry, make it.
Turn that off.
This?
I don't know.
No, that's not it. What's this?
Hi, folks. I realize we're at the top of the hour. I'm just going to give, I'm waiting 1 or 2 more minutes to let members of the public join, and also Aaron Hakenin, one of our commissioners. So we'll just stay tuned for a moment or two.
What? No, I'm not watching. I'll turn it on. Oh, now I've got all this stuff on going. Look.
Stop.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Aaron is going to be about 10 to 15 minutes late.
Okay. I think it'll be okay to go ahead and get started, although I do want
Video.
Aaron to hear all of our agenda items.
Video.
Okay, we're good.
Well, actually, maybe I'll get some advice from Eli and Trevor on this. Should we go ahead? We do have some minutes to review, but we will have a quorum.
Yeah, I think it's fine to get started. The main thing is the agenda items. You want him to hear everything. So I think
Yeah.
there's enough other things that you can be doing in the meantime.
Okay, all right. Well, with that, I'll call the meeting to order then. It's August 18th, City of Trinidad Planning Commission meeting. And I'd like to ask for a roll call, if I may.
Commissioner Kelly,
I am present.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Here.
Commissioner Stockness,
Present.
and Commissioner Hakenen is going to be a few minutes late. So we'll note when he comes on to the meeting.
Sounds good. All right, the first item we have today is approval of the minutes from the June 16th Planning Commission meeting. And I'm going to go ahead and open first to public comments, if there are any public comments on the meeting minutes from the 16th. I do not see any hands raised or public comments at this time. If I missed anyone on the phone, please speak up. And by the way, let me just double check to make sure we have folks that are able to call in, because I know we've been having some problems with Zoom. Eli, do you know if that's been figured out, right? The issue we had with Zoom and people calling in by phone and getting kind of bumped out? Or do you know?
All I know is that for the last meeting, we took care of it, but
Okay.
I can't guarantee you for right now. I'm hoping it'll be fine.
Okay, all right. Well, hopefully, if anybody knows of anyone who's calling in and having any issues, please put it in the chat, and we'll work on it as quickly as we can. It's been a bit of an issue for a few folks, and we don't want anyone who wants to participate to be to not be able to. All right, so I see no comments from the public. Any comments, commissioners, on the meeting minutes from the 16th? Diane, please go ahead.
So on page 5 of 6, you and Tom made the motion to delay action. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
Okay, because I couldn't remember. I know I was really involved. I wanted to have another meeting. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but that's the way I recall it, Diane.
Okay, well, maybe Tom knows.
Do you remember, Tom?
Yeah, I wanted to have another meeting.
Okay, well, yeah, we all did, but I wanted it in 2 weeks and not a month. Okay, that's all.
Oh, right. Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
said the same,
So
Diane.
that's what I was thinking about.
I
Okay.
see. All right, thank you. Any other corrections or comments on the minutes? Otherwise, any motions to approve?
Okay, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes from the June 16th meeting are approved into the record. And that brings us to items from the floor. So at this time, we ask members of the public who wish to speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda to raise hands. And we allot about 3 minutes for comments. The items should be addressed to the commission at large and not individual commissioners, and we will somewhat limit our comments and responses since the items are not agendized. But please, at this time, raise your hand if you'd like to speak about something not on the agenda. All right, I'm scrolling through and I see no hands raised at this time. I'm speaking very slowly to get us to 10 to 15 minutes past the hour since we're waiting for Aaron. But yeah, so there's no comments from the floor. All right, so we're going to move on to the agenda items. And as I mentioned, I do want Commissioner Hakenen to be able to hear the staff report for the first item, which is the Hasselquist design review, use permit, grading permit, and coastal development permit. But what I can say at this time is that Commissioner Johnson will be recusing himself from this discussion. And Richard, I don't know if you want to say anything about that or if you'd like me to cover that or.
I'll just make a couple of real quick statements as to the rationale and justification. I am currently working with the applicant for a remodeling a portion of my home. And with that in mind, I consulted with the planner, Trevor, and with Russ Gans, the city attorney, to get clarification on this particular set of circumstances. And I want to thank both of them for weighing in, got a lot of good information from them. That falls into several different categories, but I won't take up a lot of time, but since one commissioner isn't here, I'll take 2 minutes. I don't believe that there is to the first order, a direct conflict of interest, financial or otherwise, as defined by the city attorney. With the exception of 2 very short conversations that I had with the applicant yesterday, the 17th, there has been no discussion about this project. So those are the 2 ex parte conversations that I can disclose at this point. I don't have a personal relationship with the applicant under what is defined as common law, with one exception, and that is that one could argue that my vote, one way or the other, on this project might impact my remodeling project, depending upon how the applicant might react to that vote. However, having said all of that, this is a complicated project, and there are several issues where I'm sure we'll get into it with respect to current analyses and rationale that the Coastal Commission doesn't necessarily agree with entirely at this point. And so with the complication of the project, and coupled with the fact that this is appealable to the Coastal Commission, it was advised that I should proceed with this should be a more reason to proceed with caution. And I would agree with that. And I would not want my participation to be a factor or an excuse for a Coastal Commission appeal. And then finally, just one quick word from the city's Code of Ethics. And I'll just quote partially from the Code of Ethics, that when a public official participates in a decision does not fall within the specific statutory guidelines for conflict of interest, but still does not look or feel right, the public official probably has encountered the appearance of impropriety. So with that in mind, and indicating that, and further saying that public officials need to step aside for the good of the community, even though there may be no technical conflict exist. So I just want to be squeaky clean, and in this case, would love to participate, but don't feel it would be in the best interest of the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. And yes, you held yourself to the highest ethics. We appreciate that and understand your desire to recuse yourself. All right, so let me see if there's anything else we want to cover. Otherwise, I may call for a short period of waiting, because we do want Aaron to be able to hear this. Oh, I guess one thing I could say, well, no, I don't even want to cover that without Aaron here. Okay, so I'm going to just suggest that everybody mute yourselves, get a cup of coffee, or your beverage of choice, non-alcoholic, of course, and we will go into a holding pattern.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Never mind. I was just going to suggest that since Aaron wasn't here and we didn't approve the agenda, that we could have modified the agenda and moved staff reports and future agenda items to the front. But here, we're fine.
That's a good point, and I was about to say the same, that we could talk about future agenda items, but there he is, the man of the hour.
I'm here. Apologies.
No worries. It happens. We're just glad to see your shining face, and we are working on agenda item number 1.
Okay.
And that is, that's the Hasselquist design review, use permit, grading permit, and coastal development permit to demolish an existing 1,585 square foot, 2-story split level home. It's 1-bedroom, single family residence, and replace it with a new 2,335 square foot, 2-story, 1-bedroom residence, and approximately the same footprint. Upgrades to the septic system are also included, and this property is located at 150 Scenic Drive. What I was going to disclose, for those of you who just joined, including Commissioner Heikkinen, Commissioner Johnson has recused himself, and he went through his rationale for that. I just wanted to disclose that, as I believe I'm supposed to, that I drove by the property today. So I drove down to 150 Scenic. I did not walk. I didn't want to trespass, so I didn't walk around on the property. But I did look at the property, and I may have some comments about that later on. But I did want to let everyone know that I did that. Okay. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Hopkins.
Well, I've been to the site. I looked at it also. Okay. Just wanted to let everybody know.
Oh, thank you. I was going to ask if anyone else had visited. So yes, it's good to disclose that. And then as we make our comments, if there's anything we share that is related to that, we can make that public. So, okay. With that, I am ready to, oh, sorry, Diane. Did you want to add something?
I didn't go to the site because I don't drive on Scenic Drive, but I went to the site probably 4 years ago when they did the converted. So I know where the site is. I just couldn't do it. I just can't drive those roads anymore.
No worries. There's no requirement whatsoever. I just, I volunteered.
But I did read the plans and all the reports, so I know what's going on.
Excellent, as always. All right. Trevor, are you ready to give us a staff report?
Thank you. Yes. So this project involves removal of an existing residence and construction of a new residence, somewhat larger in approximately the same footprint. The site is approximately an acre. It's located on the southern end of town. There's one property between this one and the Rancheria property, and it's located right on the coastline. There is an existing small ADU on the upper portion of the site that was converted from a garage. And then the existing primary residence was constructed around the 60s. So prior to the Coastal Act and prior to our existing regulations. And it is in a deteriorated condition at this point. So the applicants are proposing to rebuild it. It will include a little over 2,300 square foot, 1-bedroom, 2-story residence, and some substantial areas of covered porches, balconies, decks, as well as a new carport on the existing driveway. As well as part of this project, a new pre-treatment unit will be added to the septic system. And the project also includes after the fact approval for a new septic system, a repair that was put in 2017. So I'll talk about that a little bit as I go through my staff report. Referrals were sent to city staff and the Coastal Commission for this project. Building official didn't have any issues at this time. The applicant has been working with Division of Environmental Health on the septic system. It was determined that rather than expanding the septic system, that the pre-treatment unit would be a better solution here, because it's close to the bluff, that treats water quality a little bit better. So, and they have no issues with the project. The city engineer and myself asked for some additional information. So an addendum to the original geologic report was submitted. That information went to the Coastal Commission staff, and we had put this on the March agenda for hearing. But just before that occurred, Coastal Commission staff called and said they had concerns about the project. And so we continued it. They wrote a letter. The letter comes from a coastal analyst, although she conferred with the staff geologist on that letter, but the letter didn't come from a geologist. Another geologic report, what I'm calling geologic response in the staff report, was submitted that seems to address the Coastal Commission's concerns and comments. However, our local staff person did send an email saying they didn't have time to really review this in detail, including the new information, and are still have concerns and don't think that the city can make the findings. However, when she made that statement, she didn't have my staff report or the analysis that's in the staff report or the conditions of approval. So, without knowing more at this point, I disagree with that. But they did recommend delaying the project and the applicant meeting with Coastal Commission staff to see if they can come up with some solutions to the Coastal Commission's concerns. I believe that the applicant would still like to move forward at this point, but I'll let him address that when he has a chance to talk. So the parcel is zoned both SE and SR, so suburban residential and special environment. Where the residence is proposed, the existing residence is, and the proposed residence is in the SE zone. And so that's intended to really be in areas of hazards or sensitive habitat that should minimize development in those areas. A use permit is required for a residence within the SE zone. Because the existing residence was built prior to the zoning ordinance, no use permit was ever issued. And when a use requires a use permit, it's considered a non-conforming use. And so that's why the new residence, the approval includes a use permit, so it will no longer be non-conforming. I go through some of the density requirements. Setbacks aren't as applicable in the SE zone because it's really intended to be developed based on limitations on the lot. The house will be slightly above the 2,000 square foot guideline, but it is within the Florida area ratio that the Planning Commission uses, even including both residences. The structure does meet height, parking, setbacks, and those kind of requirements. There is some grading that is required for the project. I believe that even if the replacement residence was in the exact same footprint, there'd still be some grading required because the foundation would need to be redone. The existing foundation was not built very well and there's some tilting and movement there, so it would have to be redone anyway. About 25 cubic yards of material will need to be moved to redo the foundation, fill and grading. The city engineer has reviewed the project and concurred with the findings that have to be made for issuing a grading ordinance, which is that the project will not adversely affect drainage or lateral support of other properties in the area and will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or general welfare, and is not in conflict with the provisions of the city's ordinances. The site is already connected to utilities, and those won't change. They'll be connected to existing utilities. Exterior materials and colors are shown in the plans and have been chosen to blend with and complement the surroundings, primarily including redwood, glass, and naturally earth tone colors. Views are not anticipated to be an issue. The site is not prominently visible from any public viewing points. There aren't any residences located behind it where this might block views, so views aren't expected to be an issue. Notices were sent to neighbors, so they do have an opportunity to comment. So because of the sensitivity of the SE zone, it has a number of requirements that are unique to that zone. That includes considerations for the tsunami hazard area. The project is above the tsunami run-up zone. The project does not involve structures located on or below a bluff. That was one of the comments from the Coastal Commission, but it was determined that the bluff face is located below the residence. The residence is sitting on the same terrace as Cheryl's house. So that project was approved about 5 years ago. And that is the coastal bluff. There are some existing shoreline protection structures there that were permitted after the 82, 83 El Nino year, where there was damage, substantial damage all along the coast. And those, it's pretty solidly built in there and still remains structurally sound. Requirements for slopes near bluffs. So I think this section A might be the most problematic, where structures are required to be located at least 30 feet from the bluff. But the existing structure is actually located closer to the bluff than the proposed structure. So the existing structure would be considered a non-conforming structure. The non-conforming regulations allow structures to be altered, repaired, or extended as long as the degree of non-conformity is not increased. Although if a building is destroyed, it would have to meet current codes. The Planning Commission has consistently interpreted that to mean destroyed by an act of God, as opposed to, something that's reconstructed. And that's because the city didn't want these non-conforming structures just sitting around deteriorating, and want them to be able to be repaired and replaced and fixed up. So the new structure will be about 20 feet at its closest point from the edge of the bluff. So that is not increasing the degree of nonconformity. In addition, the geologic reports have found that setback is adequate to preserve the integrity of the structure over its 75-year lifetime. That bluff retreat, sea level rise, those sorts of issues are not going to threaten it over that period of time. And also, there really isn't suitable locations on the lot to move the structure or build it in another location for a number of reasons. The rocky outcrops, existing improvements, trying to minimize vegetation disturbance and soil movement. All those kind of regulations all point to building a new residence in the same footprint is the most feasible and environmentally friendly option. So section B, the project, because it's located in the existing footprint, that's minimizes the amount of grading and disturbance, so it conforms with that. The structure, there might be portions of the slope greater than 20% that the structure is located on. However, no new roads or driveways are needed. The construction area will need to be staked and flagged prior to construction, and there won't be allowed to be disturbance or construction materials or activities outside of that area. That's been included as a condition of approval. The site is covered by an existing open space easement. That open space easement may need to be modified slightly. I think primarily where the entry porch is an area that is currently covered by the open space easement that is new disturbance. So that might need to be adjusted, but it's that section's already complied with. Let's see, there's no streams. It's not within the Churi study area. Open space protection, like I said, it's already covered by an open space easement. We are requiring a public access easement be granted along the shoreline. So from the high tide line to the first line of vegetation. So that has been included as a condition of approval to meet those requirements. And then determination of geologic feasibility, that's the geologic report. I also want to mention in terms of that public access easement, one of the site plan shows the property line going to the US meander line, which in some areas is above the bluff and above some of the shoreline protection structures. But the meander line, is kind of it's sort of a leftover line from when the city properties were first described back in the 1800s. And from my understanding, what we found is that all these properties along the shoreline actually do extend all the way down to the high tide line, not the meander line. And like I said, a geologic report was prepared that complies with the requirements of this section, as well as an addendum and a response to the Coastal Commission's comments. Slope stability, geologic hazards. The project is located in an area that's mapped as unstable and questionably stable. Coastal Act requires that development be located in areas to minimize risks to life and property. And I believe the geologic report and addendum and response address those hazards. It is subject to some slope instability. The foundation is designed not to stabilize a potential slide, but to allow some movement and keep the house stable. But it's not expected that it would be unstable. A quantitative slope stability assessment was completed, showing that the site where the house is located does meet the required factors of safety. The site is well above where even the most extreme scenario for sea level rise would occur. And it is also in an area that wouldn't be expected to have significant amounts of bluff retreat due to the prevalence of rock structure that's located on the lot, as well as along the bluff. And that's even considering without the shoreline protection structures that exist, it would still be considered stable. One of the things that the Coastal Commission brought up that was new was mentioning that the existing shoreline protection structures shouldn't be allowed to be used for the proposed structure. And, again, this project is very similar to the 20 Scenic Drive project, and the regulations haven't changed. In that case, they were allowed to continue to rely on their existing gabions. And there was no mention that those should be removed. In this case, the shoreline protection is cemented into the existing rocks. It would be quite destructive to actually have to remove those. So the city does not see any benefit to considering having those removed, even though they're not necessarily necessary for this project. The septic system. So when the property was sold in 2016, city staff, we evaluated the septic system under the OWTS management program. It was a very undersized system. with only about 500 gallons of septic tank and a leach pit. DEH reviewed the site and determined that they couldn't design a repair there, that it would take engineering and soil testing. So we just required that it be monitored and maintained more closely. The applicant voluntarily in 2017 had a new system designed and engineered and installed that under permit from Division of Environmental Health. I've talked a little bit about the permitting and exemptions and repairs for septic systems when we've been talking about ADUs. And so the city hasn't ever required coastal development permits for septic repairs. Those are permitted by DEH. Maintenance and repairs are generally exempt under the Coastal Act. However, there are some exceptions to those exemptions. For example, if they're close to a bluff. And so this is in a sensitive location. And so city staff is proposing that this be an after the fact coastal development permit for the repairs, the new system that was put in 2017 under a repair permit. And then in addition for this project, we are also requiring that a pre-treatment unit be added to the system to further protect. And the geologic report also addressed the location of the septic system, its impacts on the bluff, and found that it would not have any impacts and that it is in a stable location. No new landscaping is provided as part of this project. The design review and view protection findings, as usual, are written in a manner to allow approval. But if the public or the planning presents alternative information, or if the planning commission feels differently, those findings should be reworded accordingly. There's also the use permit findings that I mentioned because of the residents located in the special environment zone. Again, those findings are written in a manner to allow approval. City staff believes that those findings can be made with the information that we have, based on the analysis in the staff report, and based on the application materials, including the geologic information, as well as the conditions of approval. The Planning Commission, you have several alternatives if you feel that, so staff recommendation is for approval of the project, but you do have several alternatives. You could add conditions to address any concerns. You could delay action to obtain further information, or deny the project if you feel one or more of the findings can't be made. There are a number of conditions of approval in this staff report that you haven't seen before. These are conditions we haven't included for projects in the city before. These are based on comments from Coastal Commission staff, based on the potential hazards and the instability of the site. So even though the geologist found that it should be stable and shouldn't be subject to hazards, something could happen unforeseen. And so these conditions address that in terms of, if something happens to the house, the property owner is liable for all cleanup and will not hold anybody else liable. If the house becomes uninhabitable, or if bluff retreat does occur, then the site will need to be reassessed or the house removed. I did want to change the wording a little bit of condition 12. So that's in the event that the edge of the bluff recedes within 10 feet of the residence or other improvements. And I would change that to, in the event the edge of the bluff recedes to within 10 feet of the foundation or 5 feet from other improvements, then the site will need to be reevaluated with a geotechnical investigation and continuing with the rest of it. And that's because the existing septic tank is right around 10 feet now. And we already have a geologic evaluation at that distance. So and then finally, the applicant must disclose all these conditions and requirements to any future buyers. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Yes, what I'd like to do is actually, before I ask the commissioners to, if they have any questions, should we, is the applicant or the applicant's architect, did you want to add any quick comments about this? I didn't know if, hi.
Yeah, hi, my name's Julian Berg. I'm the architect on the project, and you might remember I gave a presentation on it last
Yes.
time. So do you think I should walk through?
If you could just,
walk you through
maybe-
the project?
I think Trevor's covered it fairly well, and you did a great
Yeah.
job last time.
Okay.
Maybe just if there's anything that's changed that you want to bring to our attention for just, a minute or two. And then if
Okay.
Mr. Hasselquist has anything he'd like to add, I just wanted to give you guys a chance to say a couple things before we get into all our questions.
Well, first off, I have to thank Trevor for her extensive report and just attention to detail and her presentation. It's really been helpful for us to have her guidance through the project, and just want to thank her again, because it's not an easy position to be in, we realize a lot of the times. And we couldn't have gotten to this point without her and help from your staff. I don't have a whole lot to add to my presentation. We didn't change the design since we last spoke. We did do some modifications to the site plan after working with Giovanni, the geologist, to we honed in on the exact location of the septic system and where the existing hill thicker walls are. And also I added the vegetation line onto the site plan just to show that there's a significant amount of trees and vegetation below the home, and down the bluffs, which helps stabilize everything and shows that there is a lot of greenery on the site. So yeah, we're excited to hear your feedback on the project. And we've also, just to reiterate, we've worked really hard at coming up with a design and architecture that we feel is going to fit this site really well and blend in with the hillside and how the roof lines are and how it steps down the existing contours of the site, and using natural materials and earth tones to the exterior that just help it blend in and be rooted in the Trinidad coastal environment and landscape. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
And of course, I'm here for any questions or anything.
Terrific. That'd be great, because I'm sure we're going to have some. Mr. Hasselquist, did you want to add anything, or do you just respond to questions, or how would you like to proceed?
Questions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Also, one thing maybe we haven't talked about that much, and we say, well, the house is in disrepair and whatnot. I kind of looked at this like, well, would it be easier to do a remodel project? And the truth is, it's the first part of it was built in 1954, and it's on post and piers, and it's truly melting into the ground, and it's full of fungus and dry rot and termites. So it's not something you can remodel. I suppose you could do it a quarter of it at a time until you get a new house, but really what it needs is a new foundation, and it needs to be rebuilt. And that's why I'm here and going through this process with you guys. And I appreciate all your time. And if you have any questions, I'll refer to them. And also Giovanni's here, the geologist, if you have any questions.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. Terrific. Thank you very much. And thanks for your patience as we work through our process here. I'm going to, at this point, I will open to the commissioners' questions, and then we'll go to public comments. So commissioners, does anyone want to start with questions? Commissioner Hopkins.
Did I hear that you were going to do something with the foundation to allow it to settle? Or do a special foundation?
The foundation, we consulted a structural engineer, and he's going to design essentially a slab. And if there's any movement, and then we build the house on top of the slab. Maybe Giovanni or Julian can comment on this too. But it's a mattress, and it's just it's like a big stem wall, the whole thing. And it's also, there's really large boulders underneath the existing house now, and it will be tied into those boulders, and it'll be one big mattress essentially. And so it shouldn't move, but in the cases it does move, we can adjust the house accordingly, because it'll be one big mattress.
Yeah, I just want to add to that it's essentially a waffle slab that will cover the entire underside of the house. And what that does is it spreads the load of the house out evenly over the ground, as opposed to a perimeter foundation where most of the load is just at the edge or point loads throughout. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hopkins, any other questions? Otherwise, Commissioner Stockness, I believe you had your hand raised.
So the mattress slab will be poured on top of the existing foundation? Is that right?
No, Diane, we will actually be removing the existing concrete foundation so we can get a nice clean connection to the existing rocks and bedrock.
Okay, so you're going to use the footprint though. You're not moving the slab out or forward or any of that. So it's just the existing. Okay.
For the most part, there's some areas that are a little bit beyond the existing, but most of that will be cantilevered, where your joists go out over the wall of the foundation.
Okay.
So it's moving about 4 feet to the east. Is that correct, Julian?
Let's see here.
The footprint of the house, as I recall.
It's actually more to the northwest.
Northwest.
Okay. There's an area. I wish I had a photo. Let's see. There's a notch in the existing house that we're sort of filling in. It's more at the back where we're creating the new entry and entry deck.
Okay. So the height, is it going to be 25 feet or 28?
Let's see here.
That was I had that question too.
It was 25.
So on page let's see, on page 11, it says 24.5, and then on page A2 it says 28.
Right.
Of the site plans.
Oh, I know what happened there. Okay.
Referring to Diane.
You're right. Yeah, it says Trevor, before the last planning commission meeting, Trevor asked for some additional analysis as to how the existing roof height, correlated with the existing structure as well as the existing ground line. And I was able to learn from her how you calculated that it's from the approximate average ground line. When I put the 28 feet, that was from the ultimate lower point, up. So it's actually 24.5. So.
Okay.
And that site slopes in different directions. So it's a little bit hard to see that in my drawing, but on the sheet A.
Because 25 feet is, for the city, that's what we require. And I don't want to go over that, even when we were talking about other requests, for permits. So my issue is that everything's changing, the land, and Trevor gave this big report and the geologist gave the report, what was his name, starts with a V. But it is a special environment. and there is unstable soil, erosion, and wave action has caused a lot of destruction in Trinidad, since the 80s. I've been here since 75. Okay. And so I'm kind of worried about the storm and the wind conditions and the erosion. We saw what happened to the lighthouse, and, we've seen different parts of the area change. So because it is a special environment, I am concerned about that. And I read all of the Coastal Commission's reports, and she's, the lady that did that report is, kind of the opposite of what Trevor has presented to us. So it's hard. My personal concern is it might be a little too big. Are there more than 2 people that are going to live there, Paul?
No, it's just my wife and I.
Okay.
Come to stay. They're all leaving the coop right now, and so our idea is to move,
expand
there. We're going to move.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, there's room for them when they come back. I just didn't know if it was too big, but Julian is a really good architect, and he worked with my husband, so I know some of his projects and his design. He's really good. I just didn't know if it was too big for that site, because there is an STR there, and there is a detached, what is it, an ADU on the property?
Right.
Is that what it is, Trevor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is an ADU that is licensed as an STR.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that ADU STR is on your property, Paul?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I feel better about that already, because I was worried about the traffic. So what about the traffic? How much traffic is in and out?
There's not much. There's one person that lives down the driveway past us.
Okay.
And so it's just his property and ours. So there's not much traffic.
Well, what about the STR? Is it busy?
It's really tiny. It's a really tiny house.
Okay, because most of them have been sold.
I think it's 18 by 24.
Okay, no, what I'm worried about is the number of people going down Scenic and the driveway. Has it been busy all summer?
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
It hasn't been. One thing I wanted to say was, I don't know if you've all gotten a chance to look at those aerial photographs I took with it.
They're great.
And this is, I think, is in one case where pictures do really speak 1,000 words, because you can see all the rocks down on that beach.
And the vegetation.
Yeah, and then
and all
action it has. And I encourage you to look at that if you all haven't.
Yeah, I just didn't know if the whole thing was going to be too big. The place right now, is it big?
No, it isn't. But where we're getting that extra square footage is like right now underneath the house.
Porch and the balcony.
Yeah, it's just kind of a really a big crawl space underneath the house right now. So since the house is going to be up a few more feet, and also we want to take advantage of that space that's under the house that's not being used right now.
Yeah.
Having a laundry room there and a bathroom back there is going to be really helpful.
Okay.
So we're not increasing the footprint. We're taking advantage of the space that's underneath the house that's not being taken advantage of.
Okay. And so your plan is to demolish the whole house and then start anew.
Yeah, it needs to be. It's on post and pier right now, and it's been remodeled. It's probably added on 3 times. It's like split level 3 right now. It's really kind of it's not a very easy design it's not functional, aside from the fact that every piece has to be torn out and replaced for that.
Yeah, so it's better to demolish that.
Well, it needs a proper foundation for starters. So
And you haven't seen any springs on the property, springs of water?
No. I mean, there's no springs of water on the property.
Okay.
It's pretty.
And I wanted to point out that, well, to all of you, that the design of the existing house, there's a spot where the roof slopes into the center wall. It's really a funky design. And that point has been leaking for how long would you say, Paul? Decades.
Probably since
50 years.
Since it was built. And that whole wall has dry rot in it because water has been getting down in there, and all the way when Paul and I went under the house, you can see where it's getting into the foundation and down underneath. So there's so many issues with that house in terms of how the roof is done and waterproofing and flashing, that there's a lot of rot in it, because of that. So
Paul, you'll just live in the ADU or the STR when you do the rebuilding?
I probably, maybe not. So right now, we've had a vacation rental for a little while, and then before it was just one person living in there because of COVID.
Right.
So
yeah.
I'm not planning on living there while I'm building it because I live in West Haven, and we need income.
Are you the builder then?
I am the builder. I'm a contractor. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's enough, Cheryl. Thank you very much, Julian and Paul.
Thanks, Diane.
You're muted, Cheryl.
Commissioner Heikkinen, do you have any questions?
I do have one. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. I worry about my internet connection here. It's a minor thing. Trevor, on your staff report, page 15, you talk about in response to the Coastal Commission, you put in there, but it's assumed that an alternative treatment system could be engineered and constructed in another location on the property. And my question, this might be for the geologist on the call. I believe I think it was the final rebuttal, if you will, to the Coastal Commission, talks about that the septic system is located in the only feasible spot on the site for that. So does that mean for this project there's no reserve field possible, or is there anybody that can speak to that? Just curious.
There is actually a reserve area. I believe it's shown on the site plan, although because it was done as a repair, a reserve area wasn't required, but there is room for a reserve area that's shown on the plan. I guess my assumption is that, you can engineer your way out of a lot of stuff. And so if the septic system ever became threatened by bluff retreat or a land instability or something like that, that there is the potential that some sort of alternative design could be engineered for somewhere on the lot. But this one is installed. It's much less. It's cheaper to install a standard system, and the functioning. It's in a location that, based on the geologic report is fine. And so I don't think that's needed now. I was just saying that, if there is bluff retreat and they have to reassess it in the future, there is potential. Maybe they could engineer something somewhere else, but maybe Giovanni can speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Currently the reserve area would be immediately downslope of the existing two leach lines. So there's a similar sized area outlined for a reserve area. If bluff retreat ever did occur, there is additional area upslope of the existing leach lines, which are, currently there's sidewalks there, there's vegetation. It'd be the area between the existing leach lines and the road that goes to Dora and the residents at the far end of the site. That there's good soil up there. There's native soil that could be utilized for a reserve area if needed. As it is, the area where the leach field is now and the reserve that's shown, there's decent soil there, seems to provide ample treatment for the effluent. As an extra step and factor of safety, County Health came up with the idea of adding a pretreatment unit. And it would be an off-the-shelf Orenco system pretreatment unit. It's about the size of a septic tank.
Yeah.
It would be plumbed in between the existing septic tank and the leach lines. So it's a pump system. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to square Trevor's comment with yours on item 8 on page 17 of July 25th that just was stating there's no alternative areas to site a new septic system. But where it is existing, there's room for modifications or whatnot if something were to happen to the existing lines. Is that a fair assessment?
That's correct. That's correct.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have a couple of brief comments, and then I want to open to public comment because I think we covered some of the things that I had last time. But I mean, first of all, I think the design is in harmony with the environment. It looks really good. The materials that you are proposing, very similar to some of the things we did, and I hope blends in very well, and I think your house will as well. So beautiful design. The things that give me pause a little bit are the setback of 20 feet. I feel that if the footprint of the house weren't enlarging, then the setback should remain 30 feet. And that has been, we're probably not as particular about that sometimes, except in special environment. And that's what this is. So I feel like some of the rules that we have in place are specifically for special environment, and those make it a little harder to kind of overlook. But I'm just posing some of my concerns because I think I've said last time and this time that I think it's the need for a new house, given the way you've described the existing residence is it's obvious. It's obviously not working the way it is and not livable. So I was a little concerned about septic between the ADU short-term rental plus another house on this property. I believe we're looking at 4 bathrooms. We don't size septic that way, though, as I recall. Trevor can correct me if I'm wrong. I think we size it by bedrooms. Although this house is listed as a 1-bedroom, it does have an office, which I understand is not a bedroom. So we're actually looking at maintaining the 2 bedrooms on the property. So the septic, I assume, has been sized for that. But I share Commissioner Stockness's concern about size. I actually thought you might come back with a little bit smaller, closer to the 2,000 square foot guidelines that the city has, especially in the special environment. Having said that, it's only 350 square feet more than that. But again, we're dealing with the setbacks. Let's see. The comparison to 20 Scenic Drive. So I wanted to comment because I do think there are a lot of similarities in the proximity of the properties to the ocean, the gabions, although the gabions at 20 Scenic are in disrepair. However, I think 150 Scenic that has much more slope to the property. So 20 Scenic is an acre of flat and so was able to accommodate the setbacks and also accommodate the size restrictions. So I see 150, so I wanted to mention that I did drive down and the other difference is you're talking about 2 houses. So there's a house already there, the small ADU, I believe it's 1,160 square feet. And then now a proposition for a 2,500 square foot home as well. So that is also different. So looking at the property, it seemed to me that there was less buildable land there. And that the architecture of this house, while it fits very, very well, could be architected, I think, to be a bit more, to fit the footprint a little bit better and allow for those setbacks. And I guess the last thing would be septic. I am a little concerned about it. It sounds like we've decided the pretreatment will take care of it, and I'm not a septic expert, so I have to rely on the experts. So I guess I'm at peace with that. If we think that'll work, that's very important, especially so close to the ocean. So I do want to say, emotionally, I am really on board. I'd love to see you guys have a new house. I just have those concerns that I mentioned. All right, and with that, I want to open to public comments.
Hi, this is Dorn Morgan. I'm his only neighbor impacted by the construction.
Okay,
and,
please.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm excited for him and his family to get this project done, because it's right now, honestly, it's an eyesore. It's in disrepair. It's inviting some of the transients and homeless folks, of which we've had 3 or 4 just this year. And we would certainly support him to get this project done. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Jackie, I believe you have your hand raised.
Good evening, Planning Commission, and thank you, Cheryl. As you know, Trinidad Rancheria is in very close proximity to this project, and we support Mr. Hasselquist's option to rebuild his house, definitely. But we are experts in this matter because there are approximately 10 homes on coastal bluffs, and they are all moving. Recently, we were fortunate enough to be able to receive a grant to do some analysis. We have a slope stabilization project through FEMA mitigation, and we have an expert geotech company involved and an engineering company. So I just wanted to say caution is absolutely the best method here in making sure that there are no spills, there is no seepage into the ocean. And my other concern is, because this is within Trinidad Rancheria's area of concern, I would request a cultural monitor for soil disturbance. So as they excavate, it would be really great to have a cultural monitor present. And with that, we wish him well. And we're happy to share information, actually. If your architect or your geotech person would like to talk to us, we're happy to share information because it is a huge problem, and all of the homes on the Rancheria on the ocean cliffs are moving. So thought I'd share that information.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And I second the idea for the cultural monitor. We can add that to the conditions. Other public comment? All right, in that case, I see none at this time. I'd like to bring it back to the Planning Commission. Is there a motion or any additional questions? Commissioner
Cheryl, I just had a question regarding the setback. As I read the staff report, the existing setback is 16. This new one will be 20. So we are technically improving the existing setback. While not within 30, we're still making a stepwise improvement. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
There's not much room, we're sandwiched against a giant rock. So there's not that much room to go. I mean, it is where it's at. That's what we have to work with. And regarding also the movement on the Rancheria, that's what I've come to understand is that's a little more it's a little different than where I'm at because of the big the rock point right there, whereas I think there's more of an earth flow around it, and we're right in the center of it. I don't know if Giovanni might speak to that, but I think that's all I have to say at the moment.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks
it's
for
good,
that
yeah.
clarification, Commissioner Hakinen. Giovanni, were you going to say something?
Oh, yeah, if you'd like. Yeah, no, Paul makes a good point. Directly upslope of the residence is that really large outcrop. There's a house built on top of it. I acknowledge the area between McConaughey Creek at the north end, all the way to the south end on the Rancheria property. I mean, it is one large coalescing, slow-moving earth flow. I've seen the movement on the Rancheria property. My son's, friends with Jeremiah Brown, so I've been down there plenty. The road's buckling. It's like much of Trinidad Bay. There's slow creeping earth flow movement. I think the house at 150 Scenic, it reflects that to some degree, where it looks out of level a few inches. Now, granted, it's a few inches over 60 years or more, 65 years. So that'd be the whole idea behind doing a structurally reinforced and integrated mat foundation, is that basically the house is going to float on this raft of concrete and steel. Could it go out of level, a few inches over 75 years? Perhaps. But it could be re-leveled. As far as any catastrophic slope failures, I just don't see that mechanism occurring in this area. And again, there's a large rock buttress directly upslope. There's large rock outcrops downslope that are buttressing that slope. So there is some natural protection afforded by those large intact bedrock blocks. So, you buy a piece of land on the coast, there's always some risk involved, but I think the risk is mitigatable, and it doesn't pose a risk to the health and human safety. So it's, in my opinion, well within the typical risks accepted by building people living on the coast. This isn't Big Lagoon. This isn't Pacifica or Daly City, where 40 feet of bluff is lost overnight. There has been some bluff retreat that occurred in 82, 83 that was fixed with the welded wire wall. The welded wire wall is still in place. There hasn't been any bluff retreat since that time. So it's doing its job. And like I said, in my opinion, the minimal risk that does exist is well within the acceptable limits. That's all I have to say to that.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to bring it back to the planning commissioners and close public comments for now. Commissioner Stockness.
So I want to ask Julian a question, and then maybe Paul and him can answer it. What about the deck? The deck design, is it galvanized steel posts and wood? I don't know where he is. Can you hear me, Paul?
I can hear you. Is it galvanized post? I suggested galvanized railing because stainless steel railing wires were so expensive. And but now I'm going back to, I think the little tiny stainless steel wires are nicer looking. You can't really see them.
No, so the deck isn't wood.
The posts that come off the deck, I think they'll be redwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the deck, Diane, I didn't realize that I was on mute. The deck is redwood and the posts supporting it will be redwood. The foundation for those posts, I don't know what the design of that will be yet, but probably, round concrete piers that go into a mat, sort of a pier foundation or footing.
Okay, because right now we're having an extreme wind event in Trinidad. We've lost 2 panels, so that means that we've lost 23 panels now since last November. So we're putting in the galvanized posts, and our fence, I don't know what it is. It's either cedar or redwood, but I'm not on the coast. I'm 2 blocks in, but I'm southerly exposed. And this project is what, west, south and west?
Southwest.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just curious about those, the balcony and the deck. And is there a deck on top of the house?
No.
Okay. I guess.
No, but there's a deck off the second floor and then one
Right.
off the lower
Yeah.
level.
I mean, the design, Julian, is beautiful.
Oh,
But
thank
I'm
you.
worried about the wind because my neighbor's about ready to break a window with his tree into where I am,
Wow.
like right out there. So it'll be stable. It'll be stable with the wind, with those just redwood, or you don't think you needed galvanized posts?
That's a good point if we should do actual metal posts.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
do want to add that this site is more protected from the wind, at least your typical northwest winds.
Yeah.
Because of Trinidad Head, it's been really interesting
Yeah.
where I've been up above and it's windy as heck. And then you go down the driveway to this site and it's hardly windy at all. It's really an interesting phenomenon. However, when a storm hits, it will be hitting from the southwest. Diane, are you having wind from the southwest now?
Yeah.
Like with all the wind we've been having?
40 mile an hour gusts.
Uh-huh.
It's swirling around a lot, but I am going to,
Right.
I'm going to move it.
Well, I just
I know.
Sorry, what the construction of that was, because it is on the coast. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
I just want to move us. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to move us a little bit because we are going to be talking about some rancheria permits as well, and I know folks are on the call waiting for that as well. So I just I will ask again, I guess, commissioners, is there a motion? How are you guys? How do you want to proceed to approve? Do you need more information or another alternative?
I think I'm ready to proceed.
Okay.
Adding a condition of approval for a cultural monitor, I'll go ahead and make a motion that based on the application materials, information and findings included in this staff report, and based on public testimony, I find that the product is consistent with application regulations. And I move to adopt the information, required design review, view protection, and use permit findings in the staff report, and approve the project as submitted in the application as described in the staff report and as conditioned herein.
All right. Is there a second to the motion?
And real quick, Aaron mentioned the added condition.
Sorry, one sec.
15.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, Aaron mentioned he was adding the condition 15 for the culture to require a cultural monitor to be on site during ground disturbing activities. But I just also wanted to remind him that the motion should include also the modification to condition 12 that I mentioned, that it would be in the event the edge of the bluff recedes within 10 feet of the foundation or 5 feet from other improvements.
Thank you. Yes, Trevor.
All right. Is there a second
Yeah, I'll
to
second
the
that.
motion? All right. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Stockness, Commissioner Hicken, and Commissioner Hopkins, and I am afraid I'm going to oppose. It will be approved anyway, but I am going to oppose because for the reasons I mentioned and my concerns about the Coastal Commission. But thank you very much, and I wish you congratulations. I wish you the best of luck in building your new home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Could I say something real quick?
Yes, Commissioner Hopkins.
I just wanted
Sorry, I didn't know you were raising your hand. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. I just wanted to say thank you for the really nice, complete set of plans and the thoughtfulness for the lighting I see is in here, and just say it's just a real nicely thought out. I appreciate that the neighbors are on the call, that they're approving. It's really working with the neighbors. Nice job, guys. Thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, we are moving on to the next item in our agenda. And it is the Rancheria's grading permit and design review to construct an approximately 1,300 square foot single story Interpretive Visitor Center located on previously disturbed lands currently occupied by storage units, and the gift tackle shop. The building will house the gift and tackle shop, a seating and viewing area, coffee bar, reception area, 2 offices, and a restroom. It would also provide educational opportunities focused on regional resources for tribal citizens and the public. This will be located at 1 Bay Street within Trinidad Harbor area. And I will start with by asking for the staff report. I'll allow, of course, the Rancheria to add, the applicant to add their comments for a few moments, and then we'll basically follow the same process we just did. So Trevor, do you want to kick us off with the staff report?
Sure, thank you. The interpretive center is proposed in the location where the existing bait shop is. There's also a sort of a shed type structure that's used as office and storage. And there's also like a railroad car storage container type of structure that's also used for storage. There's some utility boxes. The area is used for storing the skiffs in the winter and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of improvements there right now. And so this would consolidate all those structures. It would be located, from the size is from the exterior wall of the existing tackle shop to the exterior wall of the existing office shed building. So it doesn't take up more of an area than is already taken up by existing structures there. And there's also a porta potty over there as well that has been known to wander off in the winter during storm waves. So it would be good to actually have an office building with a restroom. So the idea is it would still house the tackle shop and bait shop with an expanded gift shop, also have some interpretive materials. It would have a small coffee shop and a seating area that would also provide viewing of the harbor. And it would have a couple of office spaces and a restroom inside as well. So it's about 1,300 square feet. Referrals were sent out for this project. I expanded the city's referral process, and I'm going to do that into the future. It's still a work in progress, but for this project, in addition to city staff and the Coastal Commission, I also sent referrals to the Yurok tribe and the Cherokee Ancestral Society. Let's see, the city engineer did have a few comments, but doesn't have any real concerns with the project. His comments will be included as have been included as conditions of approval, basically dealing with stormwater and drainage for the most part. Also, the health department, they had no issues with the existing septic tank or septic system. It's actually a what's known as a packaged treatment plant. So it treats the wastewater, fairly high volume of wastewater, before discharging it into the existing leach field. It's well under their water use currently is well under what that system is designed for. It's about half. I think I have it in the staff. Well, it's probably later in the staff report. So maybe I'll wait to get to that. The harbor area is a little, the Coastal Commission expressed some concerns, but didn't really have a chance to evaluate the project. They're obviously concerned about viewshed issues there. They mentioned some unobstructed views of Trinidad Bay, but I don't think those actually exist currently. And that, minimizing, again, geologic and flood hazards, storm surges, sea level rise, tsunamis, and then ensuring that the structure won't interfere with commercial fishing and recreational boating activities. And I believe those have been addressed in the staff report. But as you're probably aware, the harbor area It's zoned by the city as commercial, but the Coastal Commission did not certify that zoning as part of the city's LCP. And so that area is considered an area of deferred certification. So the city is not authorized to issue the coastal development permit in that area. So once the rancheria has city approval, they're going to have to go to the Coastal Commission for the coastal development permit. So these issues will also be addressed before the Coastal Commission. I will also mention that there is a corner of the building that is going to encroach within the city's Galindo Street right-of-way. The existing office shed already does that. And so there is a condition of approval that they will need to receive an easement or some sort of landowner agreement and approval from the city council in a form approved by the city attorney to locate the building within that portion of the city's right of way, which the city isn't currently using. There's a description of the project there that was provided by the rancheria. So the zoning is commercial, and principally permitted uses include retail stores and services of a light commercial nature. Restaurants, service stations, theaters are also allowable uses. The proposed interpretive visitor center seems to be compatible with these allowable uses. Minimum lot size is 8,000 square feet, but there aren't any density requirements that would apply to this project. Setbacks are awkward to apply in the harbor area because it's, I don't know, 5 or 6 different parcels, yet it's managed all as one. So setbacks don't really make sense. The only area where setbacks would be an issue on this property anyway is at the Galindo Street right of way. The site is already flat, so minimal grading will be required for this project. But the city engineer has found that the findings for the grading ordinance can be met. Views. So both the Coastal Act and the city's ordinances protect public views. The rancheria provided some photos, but it looked like those were from the winter and I wasn't sure exactly the date. So I went down and took some current photos. And as you can see, there's, that first photo there on page 7, that's as if you were driving down the access way. And then the second photo is basically standing in front of the building. So you can see there are currently not unobstructed views of Trinidad Bay now. And since the building will basically be located in the footprint of the existing building, all you're losing is that view in between those two structures. And then it'll be a little taller too, so you'll probably lose the ridge line above that shed as well. But it seems pretty minimal, and there's aesthetic advantages of consolidating those buildings. The proposed building is going to be similar in design and materials and colors as the restrooms. So with the rock face on the base and the siding on the top and in earth tone. So it seems like it will overall improve the aesthetics of that area. It's not going to interfere with public access at all. It's not going to interfere with the boat launch or other harbor operations. Like I said, it's basically located in the existing footprint of those buildings. Parking and traffic. So parking is another difficult thing to evaluate. So this is adding square footage. So parking requirements for the buildings and uses in the harbor area would increase. But the city we don't have parking standards for outdoor recreational uses. So there's really no way to measure if the existing parking is conforming really or not. And because some of the, over in the gravel area, the spaces aren't lined, it's difficult to determine how many spaces are over there. So, but I am doing a parking study right now, and I did on one day count 192 vehicles in the harbor parking area. And so this additional square footage would require, like 5 spaces. So, that the 192 well exceeds what's required for, the restaurant and other uses that we have parking the STR. So well exceeds the standard of parking that the city has. So and no parking is being removed as part of the project, but none is being added. But I don't think it's necessary for this. Construction date and timing is currently unknown. It's going to depend on the permitting process and the bid process. But there is, because it's on the edge of the harbor area, it's expected that disruptions to traffic and parking would be minimal. The project has been conditioned on maintaining access to the beach and the boat launch at all times during construction. Coastal dependent uses, again, this project isn't coastal dependent, but it doesn't seem to interfere with the existing, coastal dependent uses in the harbor area, and seems to enhance those uses and provide additional services for visitors. So it seems to be consistent with the Coastal Act requirements for that. Utilities are already provided to the site. Stormwater will be connected to the existing stormwater treatment system that's over by the pier, that covers the pier. Water, electricity are already provided to the site. The septic system, the kitchen will be plumbed to a grease trap that already exists for the seascape, and then into the existing septic system. And then the restroom will be plumbed directly into the septic system. And the health department did mention that they don't have any issues with the septic, but that the food team will need to review the project prior to construction, and the coffee bar will likely require a permit from the food team at Division of Environmental Health. So that will be added. I would propose adding that as condition number 9 for this project. This project's not in an area that's designated as unstable. It's relatively flat, no known stability issues. It is in an area that's mapped as having soil limitations. An R2 soils report was prepared for this project to inform the foundation design, includes recommendations for site preparation. Mostly those clayey soils are limitations for the septic system. The leach field is actually located sort of on the hillside below the vacation rental that's up on the hill. So it's outside of that clay areas. Flood, tsunami, sea level rise. So the elevation is approximately 25 feet. So again, well outside of any hazard for sea level rise encroaching. It is within the tsunami zone, as is everything in the harbor. We don't have special requirements for tsunami zones. The R2 report did recommend that the design allow for blowout of the walls in case of tsunami, if that's feasible. So that would preserve the structure. And so that has been included as a condition of approval as feasible. It is in an area, or it's near an area at the 21-foot contour, a FEMA mapped VE flood zone. So that's storm surge, storm waves. But it's still located 4 feet above that flood zone. So even if sea level rise were to occur, the upper end of the most likely range is about 3.3 to 4.3 in Humboldt Bay, which is subsiding. So that's more than what would be expected in Trinidad. So it's not in an area that's subject to flooding, sea level rise, or geologic hazards. Tsunami is the only issue. Septic system, I think I already talked about. Cultural resources, the Rancheria has done archaeological investigations for their site, and this is not an area where resources would be expected, but a cultural monitor will be required to be on site during ground disturbing activities. Then design reviews. So the design review findings have been written in a manner to allow approval. Again, I think the biggest issue here is views. And, I think that the view impact is minimal, but the aesthetic impact is an improvement. So staff recommendation is for approval of the project. As usual, you could alter the conditions of approval to address any concerns or continue the hearing to get additional information. Conditions of approval are fairly standard. Like I said, adding the condition that they will have to get approval from the city council for construction within the Galindo Street right of way. So let me make sure that one made it in there.
It's condition approval 3.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I skipped over that one. Thank you. Okay. Condition 3. And there's actually 9 conditions. So the health department condition would, number 8 is actually isn't labeled. So 8 would be 9 and 10 would be the getting the permit from the kitchen crew at the health department. I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Trevor. Did anyone from the Rancheria, from the applicant, wish to speak for a few moments, or would you prefer to just take questions? Jackie, did you want to
Hi
give us some
again.
thoughts?
I just want to say we're really excited about this project. It's one of the last remaining projects beside our stormwater project to mitigate all of the existing buildings. We inherited all of the buildings that are there now. And if folks remember correctly, the existing bait shop was moved from the foot of the pier because of the stormwater vault that had to be relocated. And it was always understood from the pier project that we would be rebuilding. So, and Trevor's nodding her head. So it was never intended that bait shop be a permanent fixture. We knew that it needed to be rebuilt. And as everything, it takes time to complete design and engineering and to acquire the permitting, and especially to acquire the funding to go after the grant funding necessary to complete a project of this scope. So as I mentioned, we're very excited. We feel like it's a really good package. We've kept everything consistent with the other aesthetics from the restrooms. And Trevor just did an excellent job of the staff report. So thank you very much. And as she mentioned, we will be adhering to California Building Code. We have plenty of capacity at the wastewater treatment plant. We have an existing stormwater vault. And we, definitely agree with the conditions. I was a little confused, Trevor. I believe Leslie indicated she did turn in the structural calcs and the soils report. And I think that those items were part of the conditions, or I saw that listed somewhere. So I wanted a little clarification on that.
Yeah, I think the engineer had wanted to know some stormwater volumes and then the water pressure volumes. And he had a couple of comments that I thought might have been covered already in the plans. But that just means that as part of the building permit process, he'll look at that more closely. So as part of that process, there may be a little bit of additional information that you need to put forward, but whatever is required for that. But
Yeah. That's no problem. So thank you very much. And I too am available. And our engineer, James Ammon, is on the line. His company is Willowhawk. So if you have any technical questions, he's available.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, commissioners, you're up for questions. Commissioner Stockness. Your hand was raised first, and then we'll go to Commissioner Hopkins.
Trevor, can you explain the Galindo right away? Is that the trail? Is that the hill with the steps?
yeah, so it's not the trail. If you look at the site plan, the first page there, it shows the property lines, and you could see that Galindo right of way comes way down. And we had to do this for their stormwater project as well, because they're going to be putting new, permeable pavers and some other work in there. So, there are already harbor improvements in that right of way, and the rancheria is already managing it, but there's not an official easement that we know of. And so, for a permanent structure, it's just the corner you can see there. It's not on any existing pathways or roadways, and it's not going to interfere with any access. It's not a part of the right of way that the city's currently using. So I don't anticipate that would be an issue.
Okay. So next, I agree that, well, I actually disagree. I think the views are going to be impacted because I've been here 45 years and we have a boat. We use the launcher going down into the bay. So I use the old building, where the bait shop was before the handicap parking. And then now I just think, it's just my personal opinion that the view between the sheds and the rooftop will be affected. And I like the design. I'm all in favor of this whole facility. I think, it'll be good. I'm a little concerned about what's going to happen in the kitchen because the seascape is, a restaurant. And my other concern is parking. Okay. So I had a conversation with a rancheria member today, and I said 30-minute parking out in front of the interpretive center, because people park there and they're there all day, and I've seen the same truck with the surfboard in there at different times. And I've done parking down there, and I got 206 spaces on July 1 on a Friday at I think it was 1 o'clock. So that's just, and I don't know if we can add it as a condition, but I am concerned about the parking in front. I want everybody to be able to use this center, to go in for a cup of coffee, to go in for, some bait. And I don't want them sitting there for 2 or 3 hours and their boat's in the water and their kids are on the beach or they're on the beach. And this will happen. So that's what I'm thinking. I don't even know if you can get 5 spaces there. There are 4 right now. But I'm thinking 30 minutes, get in and get out, unless you have a little permit from the interpretive center that you're in an educational session. Okay. So anyway, that's my issue with the parking and the views. And it looks like the road, they won't move on to the road with the building. Is that right, Trevor? So we'll still be able to go down, check out Launcher Beach, swing around, get the boat unloaded on the train track is what I call it. Okay. So, that's good. And I liked your photos. that you did. And I think we were both there doing the parking study that day you were doing the photos. Let's see. And there's 12 seats. Is that right in the restaurant area? Okay. Let me check here. Okay. And then the other thing that I wanted to do with the construction, if, everything's approved, is all right, it's on the back here. Get some arrows. Have the rancheria get some arrows once you get down the hill and you start to go towards the seascape or the restrooms, and then you're going to get to the interpretive center. We need arrows going that way, and then we need arrows to show people how to turn the corner and get out. You know what I'm talking about, Trevor?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the Rancheria will be looking at that more with their stormwater project, since they're going to be doing.
Okay, because it was an issue this summer with the trailers, with the tourists. And, I had one person coming right at me and I said, move over, and I made them back up and go the other way because I was trying to get out and they were coming in, and all the cars were parked along that sand area now. And then the trailers and the boats and the parking lot had at least 90 cars. So we definitely need those arrows.
Yeah. But I think boats go one direction and cars go the other. So that's, I don't know.
No, well, this wasn't a boat. This was a car with two people going to the seascape. So, and then when the construction happens, we need some signs that talk about where to park or where not to park, or the yellow tape so they can't get there. So they can have that whole space to do their construction, but not the restaurant parking, because we don't want to take it away from the seascape, because they need their restaurant open. So besides the signs during construction and the arrows and the parking, I think I'm done. But I do like the design. I like the idea that I can go in and get coffee and worms in the same place. Okay, I'm done.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Hi there. I received a letter from the Ancestral Society, and I was reading it and about CEQA and all that, and I suddenly realized I have to recuse myself from this one. I'm working with the tribe or talking to the tribe about something, so I'm out on this one. But just wanted to point it out that this letter did come in, and I hope you all got it and read it also. And good luck with it. Thank you.
All right. So then, Commissioner Hopkins, you would just turn off your video camera and not participate in the discussion, and then come back if you, hopefully you can, come back for the STR discussion. But you're welcome to listen in. And it's,
sounds great. Thank you.
Basically, you're leaving the room.
Yes.
Okay. And we haven't spoken about the reasoning, so I just trust your judgment on that. And with that, I will move on then to Commissioner Johnson or Heikkinen if you have questions or comments. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you. Just a couple of things for clarification. And in no order specifically, I'm assuming, based on what the report says, the staff report, that the restroom is a public restroom. And I guess the question then would be, and I believe I know the answer, I just want to clarify this for the record, that it's ADA compliant.
I did not check that. I assume it is a public restaurant, restroom. Maybe Jackie or Leslie can answer that. It would have to meet building code requirements.
Okay, so essentially that means it's ADA compliant, I believe. And so the only, and I don't think it's a big issue. I was just trying to clarify whether or not it was going to be available to the public in that we have the public restrooms right up the 100 feet or so up the street. Okay. Let's see. I'm a little confused, Trevor, about this issue. It's on page 2 regarding under the last paragraph, the site characteristics, and it has to do with the right-of-way. This indicates that the city has been working with the Rancheria since 2019, and there seems to be. I guess what it's a little confusing is there a current agreement for use of the easement, or is that still in work? Because it says that the project from 2013 required an easement. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, so I believe that was approved actually at last week's council meeting, the landowner agreement, the letter of permission for the stormwater project.
Okay, so that includes then an agreement for the easement?
I don't think it's an easement. Because it's a right of way. I don't believe it was an easement. It was in the form of a letter of permission. And it had, it did have both parties' signatures and, a set of conditions for use of that area.
Okay, is it an easement or a right of way?
Well, for the city, it's a right of way. It's the city's right of way.
Okay.
And I don't know, like I said, for the stormwater project, it was a letter of permission, not an easement that's going to be recorded, I don't think. And I don't, I wrote the conditions so that it's, whatever the city attorney says we need, then that will be the form it will need to take.
Yeah, well, the condition states that the Rancheria will enter into an agreement with the city or obtain an easement to the satisfaction of the city attorney for the use of the Galindo Street right-of-way. So I was just trying to clarify exactly where we stand with that right now. And I understand it's a condition of approval, and I accept that. That's fine. Okay. Just a couple of other things real fast. Just a process check. I understand, of course, that since the city doesn't have oversight of the CDP process, that it will go to the Coastal Commission for that. Assuming that there are issues related to either the grading or the review process, which we do have control over, will this project come back to the Planning Commission for, I'll call it final approval or additional review?
So if the Coastal Commission approves it as, the same design as the city approved, it would not need to come back to the Planning Commission. But it does, if the project gets modified during the Coastal Commission review, then it might have to come back to you for an amendment for design review. And then it does need a building permit from the city. So that also requires the engineer review as well as the building officials review.
Okay, thank you. Just real quickly going through my notes here. I did have one question on the site plan, and it's actually two questions on the site plan. The first question on the plot plan, you did describe the City of Trinidad easement. Again, I'm back to this easement thing, but there is I'm going to say at the southern part of the easement, there looks like a small box that points, that has an arrow to it. But then there was also another boundary line that seems to bifurcate it from the rest of the easement. What is that, and what's going on there?
Yeah, good question. So the little I forget my geometric terms. That a rhomboid?
Rhombus, I believe.
Rhombus.
It's a polynomial.
Yeah.
So
And
that
are you, 1 second, sorry, you guys. Are you on page, just so everybody can follow along? Are you on page 1 of 1 on the plot map?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So that is not part of the right of way. It is an easement that was granted by the Hallmarks to the city to reach the stormwater outfall. And it doesn't actually quite reach all the way to the stormwater outfall. So for the city's stormwater project, the city had to get a letter of permission for from the Rancheria to do the work to remove the stormwater outfall, because that easement doesn't actually quite cover it all. So that is an easement on Rancheria property. The other part, the boulder line, that is city right of way. So that's city property.
Okay, I think I understand then the line, the demarcation there. Okay, thank you. On the sheet C3, the demolition plan, and this is somewhat related to the plot plan as well, but there are several of the buildings here. I guess it's the bait shop and then a storage shed, et cetera. And the demolition plan indicates that those buildings to be relocated. I guess what wasn't clear to me is, are they being relocated elsewhere on the Rancheria property down there, or are they just going to go away?
That's a good question. I'll let Jackie clarify. I assume because they weren't part of this approval that they were going away out of the harbor, out of city jurisdiction. Otherwise, if they were being relocated within city jurisdiction, that would need to be part of this approval.
Good point. Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions for now.
Thank you. Commissioner Hickenden, do you have any questions?
I do, just a few. Let me find my notes here as well. I'm unclear on the plan. Is the building going to have fire sprinklers in it? I couldn't find that definitively listed anywhere.
I believe so. I think all new commercial buildings have to be sprinkled.
I thought I saw it, but I can't lay my hands on it at the moment.
I've gone back and forth. I just want to make sure that is going to happen. There are no proposed changes or improvements to launch or beach access currently in this project, right? It's complete. That's a separate issue, correct?
That's correct. So there will be some additional pavers put in as part of the stormwater project. That's already been approved and separate from this project. So this project will not affect either the driveway to the launch or the access to Launcher Beach.
Okay, and then I have one more comment. I just have to find it here in my notes. Do this electronic. As we understand it, is it going to be a retail? It sounds like, based off Diane's desire to buy coffee and worms, it is going to be a retail coffee shop, right?
I believe so. That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay, I'm hoping the applicant can speak to that. The intended use is to confirm that it's going to be a retail as opposed to just, free coffee or something like that in there. Those are my few things. I think I am definitely curious about the sprinkler, just confirming, because I just couldn't put my fingers on that on the plan anywhere. All right, thanks. That's it for now.
Aaron, if you look at condition of approval 6, the engineer has requested, the last bullet says provide water needs for building, including pressure and volume needs for fire sprinkler system.
Fantastic.
So that implies to me that that they will have a sprinkler system.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. I knew it was there somewhere, but okay. I guess it's my turn. I guess I just want to make sure I understood that the height of the building is 16 feet. Is that correct? Is that what everybody else saw? Okay. So that is, from a view shed perspective, that's pretty good. It's not a really tall building. And I love the kind of glassed-in enclosure. If that's the piece that's open to the public, that's part of for perhaps a coffee area, then that also provides views for folks when the weather's inclement, for people who maybe not as hardy, maybe wheelchair bound, that kind of thing. It gives some older folks a chance to go in and enjoy the scenery and be protected from the elements. It's really a nice touch. Trying to think, is there a way to? I take it that there is not a way to avoid the Galindo right away. So that is just not a possibility, right, Trevor? I mean,
Yeah, it looks to me because then it would have to move closer to the launch facility. And so I think they're trying to keep it within the footprint of the existing buildings.
Okay. All right. That was one of my questions. I'm sorry, I just have one more. So we're replacing portable structures, and there was some information in here about because it was a replacement of an existing structure, but I thought, well, they were portable structures, but since I can't find my notes, I'm going to hold on that. Water usage is always a concern right now in the city. The Beachcomber, for example, averages about 600 gallons per day. Adding a restaurant coffee shop will add increased water usage on the part of the Water Advisory Committee. And because I'm working on a water catchment report as we speak, if the Rancheria were excited about doing some sort of rainwater catchment there, that would be wonderful. Certainly not a criteria, but by any means. But I just want to mention that. Let's see. I think that's all I had for now. So I'd like to make sure we have plenty of time for public comment. And we did get a letter from Taz. If there's no one from Taz who comments, I will read a portion of that letter into the record. So anyway, let me open for public comments. I am not seeing any at the moment. Oh, there we go. Let me start with, I'm going to start with Jackie so she can answer the questions and then go to Ms. Provost, Sherry. So Jackie, I think you probably heard a few of the questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Cheryl. And I hope I captured most of them. Remind me if I haven't. Yes, the restroom is ADA compliant in the harbor. The public restrooms are ADA compliant. The restrooms in the new interpretive center / bait shop will be for employee use, not for open to the public. We created and built the public restrooms and service them twice a day, and we keep those open for the public. So regarding the boundary line, we actually have completed a very in-depth survey. We met with Eli and Trevor, our engineer, James Ammon. That survey was done by a licensed professional engineer, and it has been recorded the county of Humboldt. And I don't have that survey in front of me or the plan sheet, but it's a real strange little dog leg that kind of intersects the existing corner of a building. So I think everybody is in agreement. It's minimal and it's not impacting the trail itself, the stairs, or anywhere near Galindo Trail. It does not impact the trail. I want to make that really clear. It's across the driveway. And it's behind existing sheds right now. The demo plan indicates there will be no buildings. That's correct. We will not be leaving any of the existing buildings there. And What did I miss?
I think that was it. There was a question about the fire sprinklers, but I think we answered that.
Yes. That will, I did want to talk about signage and parking for Diane. I'm happy to look at temporary signage down there because I agree 100% that it can be a mess. And everybody has a different idea of what they can do and what they should do. The overall project for the stormwater reconstruction, we were going to include really nice signage for everything down there. And in fact, I don't know which project will happen first, the stormwater project or the interpretive center. So it's gonna, it's gonna depend on the timing of construction on both projects. But that is our plan. There will be bioswales, there'll be rain gardens, it'll totally change, the stormwater project will totally change the character of the existing parking lot. And that sand area where we removed the ice plant, that will totally be mitigated and paved, and everything will change and parking will be maximized. And I did like your idea about limited time on parking in front of the interpretive center. I think that's something we can definitely look at. As far as the kitchen in the interpretive center, our goal is to sell coffee, lattes, cappuccinos, and pastries. It would not be a full kitchen. It would just be Danish and coffee, basically. And the interpretive part of it, we have a coordination going with BLM. We've talked about, having docents also with the museum, Trinidad Museum, cultural docents, our TIPO, the other TIPOs in the area. Our hope is to really coordinate the cultural resources and the presentation together with marine resources and actually do educational presentations there. So overall, it's just going to be a real asset to the entire community. Hopefully I answered everything. I'm happy to come back if I didn't.
Thank you. I think so. The commissioners will raise hands if not, but I believe that was everything. Thank you. Very comprehensive. All right. I'm back to public comments, and I believe, Sherry, I believe you had your hand raised.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can now.
I'm sorry, my video is spotty, so I'll just leave it off so you can hear me good.
Okay.
Yeah, so I am a council member of the Yurok tribe, and I'm sorry that Trevor, we didn't get to be able to meet with you about this project. I know that you did reach out, but being a very busy government, it is often very difficult to meet some of the timelines. Just a few things that I'll share just from my perspective in this matter. One, I do want to recognize the letter from the Shore Ancestral Society, and I really hope that you consider some of their points there. I do think it will affect the view shed. I think that needs to be considered quite a bit. Second, if there's any way to avoid the Galendo Street or the trail easement, I think that would be really helpful. I don't know if that's possible or not. My understanding with that trail, it is going to be closed. I think the city has been wanting to close that for a while. And I don't think that that's happened yet. And I think they're going to work on that, bring that back to work on. That is a cultural sensitive area. We know that there are some previous cemetery there, et cetera. So I believe that they are looking at closing that trail. But if there's any way to, think about the size of the facility, I thought it was a large facility given the existing facility is 300 or 650 feet. Even though there's some other structures there, it's doubling the size. So if there's any way to look at reducing the size of that, so it may be able to not affect that right away. I think that might be something to consider. And the last comment I'll make is that I do think you might be putting the cart before the horse, and you should probably have the Coastal Commission do a full project review on this to get their input and before, so that you can have a really informed decision before you make a decision as the city planning. And then on a personal note, just because I live in Trinidad and go down to the dock a lot, and a family of commercial fishermen and commercial crab people, that place gets very, very busy. And my worry is that having a another sightseeing visitor center will only increase the traffic down there, such that, it might become even more impacted. So that we have to think about, you're desiring people to go down there. You want to have educational things down there. And you're gonna advertise it. There'll be advertisements to go down there. So you're drawing more people down there to an already compacted area. So I think that's what I wanted to say for right now. And thank you for allowing me to say a few words. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All right, other public comments? I'm not able to scroll down for some reason, but if anybody sees any other hands raised, okay, thank you. All right, I will bring it back to the Planning Commission. I do want to acknowledge the letter from the Shirai Ancestral Society. I know the commissioners, most have had a chance potentially to look at it, although I believe we got it a little bit before the meeting this afternoon. But I think Ms. Provolt summarized somewhat the same concerns. I think the concerns center around the size. And maybe I can just go to TAZA's kind of recommendations. They feel that the project is being submitted for review prematurely, and that there are a long list of conditions in the report that should have been dealt with before it was brought to the Planning Commission. They have their suggestion that the visitor center, interpretive center be reduced in size to be consistent with the existing building 600 square foot footprint. And the foundation also consistent to the existing with minimal ground disturbing cement pavers. They'd like to see minimization of the negative impacts to the view shed. Also the building outside of the Galeno Street Trail right away, which has traditionally been an area of cultural sensitivity, and they're concerned about the negative impacts to cultural resources. There was also a comment about Hasselquist's project was much more complete, a bigger project packet with more detail, and also deep concern about saying that the Coastal Commission did not have time, and then also water concerns. The city is short of water, and this would be another area of water usage. So I think those were questions and concerns that have been raised and have come up. So I wanted to enter those into the record for Taz. Okay, back to commissioners. What are your thoughts at the moment about this project? Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments that the Ancestral Society has brought forward. I was also very concerned about the water usage, and here is a classic example of conflicting policies when you look at the concerns that everybody has right now about water. And then on the other hand, we are in the process of trying to develop an ADU ordinance that would allow for additional water usage in many cases. So I looked at this and in my mind said that this is, and I'm just making this a notional case, but that this is adding one more ADU to the water system. So I didn't see that as a significant impact. I was the idea of the size, the shape, the bulk of the building is certainly an issue. I think that's balanced by the fact that we are removing several smaller buildings. And I think from an aesthetic standpoint, this will be much more pleasant, although that's in the eye of the beholder, I understand. The other major concern, I think, and we've all voiced it, I think, one way or the other, is views. And obviously that's going to be a big concern and a big discussion with the Coastal Commission. And that's why I asked the question earlier about what the process was for bringing the project back, because I think that will be one of the major concerns that the the Coastal Commission will want to discuss. Yeah, there's kind of the chicken versus the egg here in terms of whether or not this project should be moved forward or we wait until we get Coastal Commission comments. I guess at this stage of the game, I'm inclined to move it forward, recognizing very clearly that there will be much more discussion at the Coastal Commission level and possibly come back for further discussion with us related to the parts that we would have to engage in. So, as I said, I'm at this point, based on all the information, I think there's certainly a lot of issues, but I think that this is a good starting point, that there's no reason that we can't move it forward and allow the Coastal Commission to begin their process. Thank you.
Other comments or questions or motions? Okay. I see no questions. Does Commissioner Johnson?
Or are you asking for a motion?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to make one.
You find it. Based on the information submitted in the application included in the staff report and public testimony, I move to adopt the information and findings in this staff report and approve the design review and grading permit for the Trinidad Rancheria Interpretive Center building as submitted and conditioned herein, including the suggested addition of approval of item 10.
All right. And is there a second to the motion, Commissioner Stockness?
So we can't add any parking to that, right? The Rancheria would do that. Is that right, Trevor?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, we don't put a condition in for parking because Jackie, the Rancheria representative, talked about that. So.
Yeah, and I guess the issue that I have is that, you know, while this building would increase the parking requirements of the existing, like say Seascape or the existing bait shop by 5 parking spots, I can't make an assessment of whether there are enough parking spots now because we don't have parking standards for boat launches and beach access. So I can't assess whether there's currently enough parking and whether they've already got, and it does, they're not taking up any existing parking, and I don't see where they could add parking without, doing more ground disturbance. So I am not proposing a condition for adding more parking.
Okay. And then I just remembered that Ms. Hostler talked about the sand area that when the stormwater project gets going, that there will be more paving and more parking. So that should take care of it. So I'm kind of with Richard. Let's just move it along, see what the Coastal Commission says. And, if they say something about views, because I'm concerned about views, then the design would have to be fixed or changed. So I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And, okay. And I saw hands raised, Commissioner Hicken and Commissioner Johnson. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you to the Rancheria for attending our meeting and providing information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Planning Commission, very much.
All right, we are moving on to our third agenda item, but let me first ask if would folks like a 5-minute break or 10-minute break, or do you want to carry on? 5-minute break? Okay, let's make it 10 minutes. Let's return at 8:30. It'll be 12 minutes. You get a bonus. All right, we're back. It's 8:30 and we have one more very exciting agenda item for this evening, the STR ordinance review. Continued discussion decision on the review and amendment of the city's STR ordinance. And I won't read the number, but it's from 2016-03. And we will start off with the staff report, and then I'll probably ask Commissioner Stockness to say a few words if she would like, since she's on the committee, and Commissioner Hopkins has rejoined us. So we've got the entire band is here except Commissioner Stockness.
I was just going to say, I don't see Diane. You want me to get started anyway?
No, let's give her another minute. Let's give her another minute and see, because it's kind of her thing. So. All right, we've got the guest of honor, Commissioner Stockness. So go ahead, Trevor, if you want to do the staff report, and then, yeah, we'll talk about it.
Sure. So we at the last meeting we reviewed the ordinance section by section. I have incorporated all the amendments that were discussed previously, as well as at the last meeting, which includes the definition of meet and greet that was suggested by the STR committee, with the addition of or owner that the city manager suggested. Reduction of the cap in the UR zone from 19 to 18, extending the cap in the SR zone from 6 to 7, and implementing a new citywide cap of 32. Those changes show up in sections. I'm just going to say subsections. So they show up in E6, as well as numbering in EF. I guess that would actually be F. Is where it lists the cap. The other things we did, we expanded the restriction of STRs on adjoining properties to all zones, and extended the maximum on the number of STR licenses you can have to 2 total per person. And then so there's been and then in reviewing the ordinance, I noticed there's a lot of places where it talks about manager or owner, or the local contact person, the LCP. And I thought it might be beneficial to define property manager. I've got a potential definition in here. I looked at other ordinances, and I didn't see that a lot. Most ordinances just refer to the manager, but it does seem like the manager may be the owner. So it might be nice to include that. There's 13 locations in the ordinance where that comes up, where it's manager or owner or LCP. Might just make it a little cleaner. Maybe it's not necessary. And then the other issue, obviously, that's been the big issue is complaints and enforcement. And one of the things we talked about at the last meeting is closing the loop for where a complaint is responded to and corrected within a short period of time, and whether the city actually hears about those or not. The local contact person is supposed to follow up with the city on that, but we're not sure that's happening. And then also the idea of fines. So, really ultimately the occupants, the renters, should be held responsible for violations. And, certainly they're signing a contract that says they can be fined. I think one of the issues I understand has been that, if you're renting on a platform like VRBO or Airbnb, the deposits are built in. And so the manager doesn't necessarily have a way to collect a fine through those platforms. But on the other hand, I've also talked to managers, and if they have to, they can make things work. So, and since that seems to be the biggest issue, I tried to address that. And so I added a couple of things into the enforcement section, which is towards the back at subsection L. So I added under fines that occupants will be the ones that are fined if they don't rectify a situation after being contacted by the local contact person within 30 minutes, and that fines will be paid to the city by the property manager. And, we could consider that making the owner instead, but it seems like it's the property manager that would be collecting any deposits and dealing with the applicants. And, the property manager can have an agreement with the owner themselves that the owner will reimburse them if they, have to pay fines. So I think they can work that out. I also rearranged the sections a little bit, separated out that definition of complaints, and then added significant violations as the next section. And I noted that failure to report a complaint by the local contact person is a violation. And I added that failure to report 2 or more times could be a significant violation, which then can eventually lead to a license being revoked. Now, that's not going to guarantee the city hears about these things, but just gives a little bit more teeth, because the person who complained is also encouraged to follow up with the city. So if they follow up with the city, and we find out the local contact person did not inform the city, well, then that's clearly a violation. So, so those are the primary things that I added since the last meeting. So I think just continuing to review and discuss it and provide direction to staff for any additional amendments, or consider recommending this to the city council.
All right. Excellent. I think it's really, really getting in good shape. So great job. Thank you for all the hard work on this, Trevor. Diane, before you returned, I said maybe I'd offer you, do you have anything you want to add, or I'll let you go first because you've been on the committee, and I didn't know if there was anything you wanted to add about the ordinance.
Not really. I just want to make a comment, when it's my turn. I think Trevor did a great job. I think some of it is not going to be able to happen. Occupants shall be fined if they do not rectify the situation after being contacted by the local contact person. So the fines shall be paid to the city by the property manager. Well, there's nobody in the city Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when a lot of these violations are going to happen. So whether the contact person or the neighbor makes the complaint, it's going to be a couple of days. And then, is the occupant going to leave? So I don't know, it's sensitive. It's a sensitive situation. And I think Eli, might have a comment on that. But I think, as far as the ordinance and the whole review, I think we're done. We just need to see if we can get the fines, who's going to collect them, and if people will do the communication. But like I said, there's nobody there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, except by email, and then it'll be happening on Monday. Okay, I'm done.
All right. Eli, did you want to respond? And then I'll go to Commissioner Hopkins.
Yeah. So only Saturday and Sunday, there's no one in the office. But in addition to that, as far as the fine, whatever that may be, which I think it might be identified as $200, but whatever that fine is, then it's responsibility of, and what I'm going to call owner/property manager to collect it. They can turn it into the city, whenever they collect it, the following Monday, or it depends on if they're waiting for a check from the person who rented the property. So I don't think it would be that much of an issue. And I did say property manager/owner. I know Trevor was mentioning about the property manager, but about 10 of the properties are independent and don't have a property manager. So therefore, they are managed by the owner. So that's why I think the wording should be property manager and/or owner. And that's all I had right offhand.
Thank you.
Unless anyone has any questions regarding anything.
I think that works. So yeah, so property manager or STR, I think it's in here as STR owner or manager. Are there any, so you're saying there are some that are both, Eli? That it might be an and condition, not just an or condition?
I guess what I'm saying by and/or is, in other words, even the ones that have a property manager, if the owner wants to collect it or take care of it, who are we to choose, who does it?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Hopkins?
Thank you for clarifying, and I kind of agree. It sounds like it has more teeth when it says owner and property manager on it. But I was curious if the meet and greet actually says if there's a problem, what is done. Is that spelled out on the meet and greet, like what the email is and all that stuff?
I believe so. That's my understanding. So there's a contract and that they have to actually initial during the meet and greet that shows all the rules, and those rules say there can be fines for violating, number of occupants, noise, all those different things, visitors. So they have to initial that. And I think a lot of the idea behind this is that it's all intended to discourage bad behavior, and that hopefully we don't have to implement these things. But I think the idea would be that, if a complaint isn't resolved immediately, then the local contact person will know, because the complainer will call again. And so they'll immediately know that that this was violated, that their occupants, didn't comply. So they'll know immediately that they need to collect that fine, because the city is going to find out on Monday and collect the fine from them. So I think that was sort of the idea with that.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other comments or questions before I go to public comments? Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Under the, and I guess we're going to change this anyway, but under property manager or STR manager, the definition that we were talking about, currently it says property manager, STR manager means a person or entity responsible for managing STR. maybe this goes away, maybe it's overcome by events, but I don't like the idea of an entity being the point of contact, if you will. I think if I had my choice, I would say means the persons or representative of the entity responsible for managing the STR. It sounds like there may be some monolithic entity that somebody has to talk to. In fact, it's really a point person. On the next page, page 2, and I think this is just an administrative thing, but in the paragraph that starts, in addition to these actions, you talk about paragraph H2, and I got a little confused. I didn't think, I think that's L. I think you want to go to L2, right? On page, I think you were on page 14, page 12 and page 14. I just got a little confused as to the numbering system there.
Where's the H2 reference, or are you talking about my staff report?
Yes, on page 2 of the staff report.
Okay. Oh, I did add clarification to the violation subsection H2. Yeah, that's way off, isn't it?
Well, it's no big deal. It's just, yeah, it's just.
Yeah, it should be R2.
Okay, I think it's correct in the actual ordinance. I just wanted to verify that.
Yeah, those are all R's.
Okay, you know, I know this is way downstream from where we were, but I just had this thought when I was reading this again. I wondered if this, you know, especially looking at the variability in the population of Trinidad, you know, went down 16% this year, or in this census period. And we go to great lengths in section 17.56190E, which talks about the maximum number of short-term rentals. I really like the idea of having a total number of full-time STRs within the city limits. But I was just thinking that maybe because of the variability that's going on with population, et cetera, if we should not put in there that the specific STR licenses in each zone could be done by proclamation. And that way we don't have to continually change this. But again, we're way downstream. I'm not tied to that, but I just realized that maybe that would have been better had we done that by proclamation. I think that is, yeah, I think those are my comments. I think we're there.
All right. Commissioner Eli, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Richard, when he said proclamation, did he mean by resolution or what?
I'm sorry. That's what I meant.
Okay.
By resolution.
Okay. I was going to ask.
Yeah, my mistake. Yeah. It's too late in the evening to be thinking about this stuff.
I was going to ask you guys to explain to me because I wasn't sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Heikkinen.
Just really nice job, Trevor. I totally agree with clearing up the language as property manager, designee agent, something. I think that, and then going through the document and just, you know, define it in that initial section and then clean it up the rest of the way through. The rest of my concerns that I've had, you know, about closing the loop and that kind of stuff, I think are all administrative. I think, Richard, you had an idea to include a flow chart that existed once upon a time for the complaint resolution process. I just feel like there's a lot of concern and angst and understandable churn over that issue. And if we just kind of clean that process up as a city, I don't think we need to do it in the ordinance, but I just think if we fail to act on that as well, you know, that's not going to satisfy a lot of folks and scratch a lot of the itches that are out there. But that's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And I think it looks good. I like the definitions of the meet and greet added, the caps were updated. All of that made sense. Yeah, so I feel like we're pretty much there. Let me open to public comments and see if there are any questions or concerns from members of the public. All right, I see no questions or concerns from the public, and I'm going to go ahead and recommend, do we need to make a motion to send this on to the city council, or do we just say that we think it's ready and it's good to
Yeah,
go?
I think it'd be good to make a motion, take a vote. I do want to clarify one thing that Richard asked about. I think now, are you suggesting? I don't think that the Coastal Commission would allow us to change caps by resolution, but overall, but maybe I could ask if we kept the citywide cap at 32, if then the zone caps could be changed by resolution, would they accept that? Is that what you were kind of thinking along the lines of?
Absolutely, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
In other
Okay.
words, keep the total number of STRs citywide in the ordinance, and then allow flexibility via the city council by resolution to adjust accordingly, depending upon changes in population and different dynamics in the city.
Now, that makes sense to me. I mean, it makes it a little more evergreen. Don't have to bring the ordinance
I will
back.
inquire whether they think that is a possibility.
Okay. So I would move that we approve this, the short-term rental ordinance, and with the understanding that we may move the zoning numbers to resolution. But even if we don't, we still think it's ready to go to the city council. So that I guess that's not the most articulate motion I've ever made, but.
And it sounds like you like the idea of including the definition of property manager and then just using that throughout the document.
That is correct. Thank you. Commissioner Stockness? You're still on mute.
I'm not a
There it is.
I'm not a real computer person. Okay. So the property manager or STR manager means the person or designee instead of entity, like Richard said, responsible for managing an STR. So just add designee instead of entity. What do you think, Trevor?
Yeah, I think that works.
Yeah. Okay. That's it for me.
All right. Everybody good with that? All right. So I made a motion. Eli, go ahead.
Okay. In light of what Richard was talking about with our population decline, I'll just bring some of these numbers forward to you and see what you might be thinking. I just think it's worth looking at, and that is currently we've got in the total number of STRs, I believe it's approximately 27, I believe. And here we're throwing out a number of 32. I'm just saying that the current condition is that approximately 27. The ones in the UR are currently either 15 or 16. And in the SR, currently 5. And here we're saying to do 18 in the UR and 7 in the SR. Again, those are maximums, but a lot of times things will sort of reach out to the maximum. And if we want to try to keep this a little bit more under control, I personally think a number of 30, because the whole time I've been here, I think it had reached as high as 31, but usually it was 30, even though now it's about 27. But usually it's been 30. So I think 30 would be a good number. And I think in order to encourage more in the commercial and in the planned development zone, that we would have the UR maybe at a smaller number of like, let's say 16, and the SR, the current number is 5 actually, but 6 in the ordinance, the current number is 6. So maybe keeping that the same. But certainly the UR, because that's been the area that since I've been here where most people who have made any complaints, it's been in the UR, saying that that's where, the homes are closer together. It's the residential area. That's where they seem to have more problems. So I just think it's an opportunity since currently we do have, I believe it's either 15 or 16 in the UR. I think it would make sense to drop that number down to maybe 16 and then have a total max of 30. So anyway, that's a suggestion I'm making.
All right, thank you. I'd be fine with that, Commissioner Heikkinen. I think you were going to make a comment though before we, no? Okay. Is everybody fine with that change in numbers? Trevor, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the more we reduce, like the UR is clearly where the demand is. And if we reduce that, it's just going to make it harder to get through the Coastal Commission. We have a lot of people on the wait list that have been waiting, and now they have an opportunity, and we're going to cut them out of an opportunity to get the lottery. And I think that's going to make some people mad. And I just, I just don't see it as the easiest path forward. Maybe there wouldn't be any hurdles with it, but I think the people are making this population drop thing. Again, if you look at the decades of data between 1980, 1990, 2000, population drop when there were no vacation rentals, and then vacation rentals came on the scene, exploded between 2000 and 2010. That's when the population went way up. So, I don't, what we've been talking about is a percentage of housing units, not population. So, it's up to you guys. I just think that I don't want to have to fight a bunch through the Coastal Commission with this. I want to make it.
All right. Well, then I'm going to hold it. Let's hold on that and have a little more discussion. I think Diane wants to weigh in for one.
So I agree with Trevor that we need to keep it where it is right now. And the reason it's down, besides the population decline, is because of the COVID. And people aren't out and about, but the ones that always come are still here, and more will come because that's what people do now, is they go to STRs. My friend in Willow Creek she's tried to take hers offline, and people keep bugging her that they want to get in, they'll pay whatever. So I would leave it at what Trevor did. And then, if it's down right now, Eli, that's fine. I think we just need to go with the flow and leave this, at where it is, and then, see what the council says. But I think what we've got right now is sufficient, and I'd rather just go with, that, because I think the Coastal Commission will want us to have visitor services, and that's how we get a lot of our money. And if we've got all the rules, everything will be great. Okay.
All right. I made a motion a while ago to move this to the city council. Would anybody like to second that or make another motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous. Again, Trevor, thank you for all the hard work on this. This really came together. And Diane, for leading us, representing us with the STR committee. Thanks for all you guys are doing.
Okay.
Really appreciate it.
Now we need the city council to appreciate all of our work.
They do.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner reports. Are there any report outs? All right. Seeing none, it is back to you, Trevor. Staff report. Is there anything you wanted to cover off with us?
Still have some applications trickling in or that are getting me additional information. So we might have an application on the September agenda. Eli and Ross and Gabe and I met to talk about enforcement, since that's been kind of a spot that the city's been lacking in. So I think we've got a plan and try and do more of that. I actually have had a little bit of time this week to work on the general plan update. I didn't have time to work on the ADU ordinance for this agenda, but I'll have that on the next agenda again. I'll be here for the next meeting, but then I'm going to be out of town for the last 2 weeks of September. I think that's all I have to report.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's talk about future agenda items. I think, sorry, Commissioner Hopkins.
Oh,
Go ahead.
It's a future agenda item, I guess.
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
I've been getting questions about Launcher Beach. Like, is that going to be? People think it's going to be closed, and I'm just curious if whatever is known out there in regards to Launcher Beach.
I'm not aware of anything. The only thing they might be talking about during the project, but the stormwater project.
Like it was going to go to private ownership with one of the tribes, or it's not going to be available to the beach, to launch a beach, the boats anymore. Is this just a story that's being told around town? And
I think it's just a rumor. I think they're. The Rancheria is in the process of putting that harbor property into trust, which means it would no longer be in city or coastal commission jurisdiction. And there certainly is a worry that access could be affected. But I don't really think it's in the Rancheria's best interest to do so. There is a public easement to the pier. Certainly everything below the high tide line is public. And the Galindo Street right-of-way does run into Launcher Beach. So, I know there is some movement towards trying to come up with a plan to close that trail. But that doesn't mean the easement, that the right of way is going to go away. So if the Rancheria did try and close off access, that right of way does exist and it goes on to Launcher Beach.
Thank you. I just said I would ask. So thank you.
So one of the things I was going to say is I thought we took the West Haven CSD intertie off because that was moved, I think, to the Water Advisory Committee. Is that what you remembered, Richard and Trevor? Okay, Trevor's nodding. I thought we took that off and we decided they could work on that. And then there's been some discussion there. The tsunami siren update, are we still trying to get that? Or I guess we'll leave it on there. Yes, Diane saying yes. Okay. And then I'm afraid I've forgotten what TMP incorporation is into the GP. I can't remember what TMP is.
Tri Management Plan.
Oh, of course. I don't know why that acronym just doesn't stick for me. And it's an important one. I'm sorry. Okay. And then I wanted to recognize Commissioner Stockness wanted to add something.
Well, I wanted to go back to the priority list. And, I think the STR is done, update. And then I don't know, the water committee seems to be on a roll to get that done. And we've been talking about housing and ADUs. So I'd like to kind of clean up all those little priorities and get back to the general plan. Because we really need to get done with that. And, get the the people that want permits, get them in there, get details for what they want, and we can just say yes or no at one of the meetings. We don't need to keep putting them off. And I think, the Rancheria is really doing a good job getting their projects on, and they've got a lot of information that we can use and okay. I just think the applications for permits need to be looked at. And then I am concerned about that one, the old church and the art sign that's up. So I don't know if that has to do with us, Trevor, or what, but that bothers me.
Yeah. So, I think, so basically they just replaced the sign that was there with a new sign. Change in sign copy. I think if you read the city's code, it could be argued that change in sign copy requires design review, but we don't generally, signs change in businesses change in the Saunders Shopping Center, and we haven't reviewed all those signs. They did submit some information to me in terms of, what they plan on doing and how many people and how often. They do have, apparently they say they have permission from the school to use the parking lot in off hours. So I am reviewing that to see if it needs a use permit or a coastal development permit as a change of use. It's, what they're doing is similar to the kinds of activities that were occurring when it was a church. So I'll be taking a look at that. And then they do also have an application in to rezone that property, but I'm waiting for some additional information from them on that.
So that'll be coming up soon?
It depends on when they can get me the information. I'm the church on Berry Road. I'm getting close, I think, to having everything I need to bring that rezone to you. It's basically the same thing. It's a PR to, well, actually, no, that one's PR to SR, suburban residential. So actually a little easier, I think. For the PD zone, it's a whole new set of uses that would be allowed. So a little bit more analysis will be required for that.
Well, because the school's going to start and the traffic's going to get, intense there in the parking lot. So I would feel comfortable if we got that information and we could get going on that, because it's on Main Street in the city. So whatever you can do, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Heikkinen.
Just to Mayor, I was approached by 2 members of the community about that same location, just that it's in use now as something other than a church, as this art center, and people are just concerned or just interested in what that would or wouldn't trigger, whether it can be used for something different in the interim or how that kind of works. So I don't know if there's any way to bring back just a little quick synopsis on that for us, just so we have talking points or something to share. I don't know if that's for us or what.
I can do that. And like I said, I just received their little packet last week. I think when I dropped off the Planning Commission packet. It's another one where the Coastal Act defines a change in use as development, but again, like say in the Saunders Shopping Center. A place went from wine tasting to pizza, or from an office to wine those businesses have changed, and we haven't required a use permit because they're all principally permitted uses. Again, I think it could be argued that a permit is required, but it's not what we've done in the past. And our ordinances are a little old and sometimes a little tough to deal with, and sometimes you could argue both sides of that. So it does seem like what they're proposing is pretty consistent with the size and the type of events that have occurred as a church. Although I think the one exception might be the music performances. So yeah, again, I need to take a look at that a little more in depth, and I will bring you back a summary if you don't get the permit. At least.
Okay, because the parking is an issue, and it's going to be the same with when school starts, and then there's the beachcomber, and a lot of the parking are out of town people. All right, I beat that up now. Thank you.
So yeah, I second Diane's comment about general plan. We knew we had such a long list of things we needed to accomplish this year, and it's a lot of load for you, Trevor, and for the Planning Commission also. And so it's just one of these things where I think at some point we have to decide if the general plan is a priority for us all collectively, if it's really a priority, and if it is, we need to get it done. And I'm not exactly sure how to do that yet, but I think that's something that we should talk about. More about just like the how to move it from point A to point B, point Z.
Yeah, okay. No, I agree. I think right now it's more of in staff's hands. I'm not sure what I could bring to you. So we've got the Planning Commission has reviewed and kind of given their blessing. I don't know if you actually made motions or recommendations on those. I forget, but the introduction, the land use, conservation, circulation. But what I'm doing right now is responding to all the Coastal Commission comments on those. And I'm almost done. I have, all the responses in the document. What I'm working on this week is finishing up my written response. And then I think the last piece is the figures. And we do have a little bit of a bottleneck with our GIS person, but I'm starting to get some figures. It's interesting. I kind of had to go back to scratch to even just do city limits. Richard, so remember, Richard, you brought up the question about the LAFCO's map and of the city's harbor area, and the city's map is one question. And then the other question is, our current city limit line is based on that US meander line, which is well above high tide line and well above the property. And our current LCP map shows zoning all the way down to the high tide line. Basically, it shows those beach areas. So I thought, okay, well, we actually have to adjust our outer city limit line. So we were able to use some current LIDAR data to pick up the high tide line. So we're basing the outer city limit on that high tide line. And then I dug up the actual description of the area of the harbor that was granted to the city, and it matches the LAFCO map. So it's been our maps that have been off all these years. And LAFCO's and the county's maps are correct. It's actually a much larger area of the harbor than we've had mapped. So that's interesting, but then it means we have to update all our other maps. But yeah, so I'm working through that, and then and I can't jump into the public safety element yet, really, because we've got that OPC grant that's going to do the hazards planning. So I think it would be a little bit premature to jump back into that. There is the community design element. That might be a good one, because we're also supposed to be working on with the SB2 grant, objective design standards. So that might be a good one. The other one is the cultural resources element, and that one we need to get back to consultation and work with the tribal entities on that before I bring that back to the Planning Commission. So it's a lot of sort of staff background work right now.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe we can work on the community design element later this year.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for the update. Anything else for agenda items? Commissioner Sockness?
So we didn't get the minutes from the July 21 meeting. So that's coming next time?
And the June 28th, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess there were two of them. So, and then our prize worker changed jobs. So it's probably after time or after her other job, she gets all those done. Okay.
Yeah, so she's here. Hi, Angela.
Hello.
Hi, Angie.
Hi. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
Okay. I just was curious. And now I even forgot about the 28th. Okay.
Yeah, there's
June
quite a
20 June 28th and then July 21,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I see no other hands raised. I think we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone, and Angela especially.
Yes, Angela.
Good night,
We
Angela.
miss you.
Oh.
Bye-bye.
Bye.